You think you understand how your own mind works. You choose what to think about. You decide when to stop. Fine. But why does it only happen at night? Why can it feel manageable all day, then turn into an interrogation the moment the lights go out? What stops knowing it's irrational from doing anything at all? Most people don't ask. They say stress or anxiety. They repeat words. But that's not an answer. When you really ask why, you find something that changes how you see thinking itself. Not as something you control, but as a system with built-in patterns it can't escape. Let me show you. Start with something simple. You're lying in bed, the room is quiet, dark, nothing urgent happening, perfect conditions for rest. And then your mind starts. That conversation from 3 days ago, the email you need to send tomorrow, whether you locked the front door, did you say the wrong thing in that meeting? One thought leads to another, then another. Before you know it, you're solving problems that don't exist, rehearsing conversations that will never happen, analyzing decisions you made years ago. This should make no sense. During the day, when there are actual problems to solve, it feels more contained. But at night, when there's nothing urgent, nothing pressing, that's when thinking goes haywire. Your mind is most active when there's least to be active about. So the cause can't be more to think about. It has to be something about the conditions. Your first instinct is that you're thinking too much because you have too much to think about. Stress, unfinished business, tomorrow's problems. But wait, if that theory were true, the timing would be reversed. The busiest, most stressful part of your day usually isn't when you overthink. It's at night, when the demands are lowest, when the environment is calmest. If overthinking were really about having too much to process, it would peak during rush hour, during meetings, during crises. But it doesn't. It peaks in bed, in quiet, in stillness. So what's really happening? Here's the key. Your thinking operates in two modes. Let's call them task mode and background mode. Think of it like your phone. When you're using an app, the screen is active and the background is quiet. But the moment you lock the screen, the background processes wake up syncing, sorting, indexing, not because you asked, because that's what the system does when the foreground goes dark. Task mode is engaged when you're actively working on something specific, reading this, having a conversation, following directions. It's narrow, concentrated, purposeful. Background mode is different. It activates when task mode disengages, when there's no immediate task capturing attention, and it has a completely different function. Night isn't when you think more. It's when the system stops being steered from the outside. During the day, task mode stays engaged because the environment keeps feeding it inputs. Phone calls, emails, conversations, traffic. Your attention gets captured by external demands. But at night, those external demands disappear. No emails coming in, no conversations to have, no immediate decisions to make. The environment stops capturing your attention. When task mode has nothing to focus on, the system automatically switches to background mode. And background mode immediately starts scanning for unfinished business. That awkward conversation? Unfinished. The project deadline next week? Unfinished. Whether you're making the right life choices? Definitely unfinished. Background mode finds these open loops and starts running scenarios. Not because they're urgent, because they're unresolved. And unresolved equals important to the scanning system. Not because it matters, because it's unfinished. You don't control when the switch happens. The system decides. But wait, it gets stranger. Background mode doesn't just find random unfinished items. It looks for connections. It tries to link disparate thoughts into coherent stories. So you start with one unfinished item, let's say that conversation from work. The system asks, what does this connect to? Well, it connects to your job performance, which connects to your career trajectory, which connects to your life goals, which connects to whether you're making good decisions generally, which connects to that mistake you made 5 years ago, which connects to whether you're fundamentally competent as a person. Each thought genuinely leads to the next. The connections aren't random. They follow associative logic. The system is doing exactly what it's designed to do. Find connections, build narratives, create coherence. Your mind takes isolated, unrelated concerns and weaves them into a comprehensive story about your life, your choices, your future. But coherence and accuracy aren't the same thing. That's why it feels profound. Coherence feels like truth, even when it's just linkage. This is why you can know rationally that you're overthinking, but still can't stop. The thoughts feel significant because they're connected to other thoughts. The system is generating meaning, whether or not that meaning reflects reality. When your mind links that work conversation to your career trajectory, to your life choices, it creates a narrative that feels urgent, revealing, important. The fact that the narrative might be completely wrong doesn't change how significant it feels. It behaves like a pattern engine under low input. It connects dots because connecting dots is what it does, not because the dots belong together. Here's another way to think about it. You're not overthinking because something is wrong. Something feels wrong because you're overthinking. The system generates the thoughts first. The emotional response follows. Here's the part that should completely reframe how you see this. You think overthinking happens because your mind is too active, but it's the opposite. Overthinking happens because your mind is too inactive. When task mode is engaged, when you're working on something challenging, background mode stays quiet. The system is busy. It doesn't have spare capacity for background processing. Think about times when you're completely absorbed in something difficult. A complex work project, an engaging conversation, an intense workout. During these times, overthinking stops completely. Not because your problems went away, because task mode is fully occupied. But when task mode disengages, all that cognitive capacity is still available. The system doesn't just shut down, it redirects to background mode. Let's bring this all together. You think overthinking is a problem with self-control. You think your mind is racing because you can't calm it down. But that's not what's happening. Overthinking isn't a control problem. It's a switching problem. You're not failing to manage your thoughts. Your thinking system is switching between modes automatically, without your input, based on environmental cues. At night, when external demands disappear, the system switches to background mode. Background mode finds unfinished business everywhere and starts building connections. The connections feel meaningful because they're coherent. The whole process feels important because it's generating insights. But you're not choosing any of this. You're experiencing the output of an automatic system. Thinking isn't something you do, it's something that happens to you. Once you see the switch, the whole pattern becomes predictable. Here's how this shows up in reality. First, timing, consistency. If overthinking were really about stress or problems, it would correlate with actual stress and problems. But it doesn't. It correlates with quiet environments and disengaged attention. Predictably, in lab studies, the brain's default mode system is consistently more active during rest than during external tasks. It's measurable. Overthinking happens after the crisis at work, when you're finally sitting still, hours after the difficult conversation, when you're alone, the overthinking follows the environmental pattern, not the stress pattern. Second, content patterns. What it's about is rarely today's urgent tasks. Those get processed in real time by task mode. It's usually unfinished business from days, weeks, or years ago. Things that felt unresolved, the system is literally scanning memory for incomplete patterns. Third, engagement effects. When you're deeply focused on something challenging, overthinking stops. Not because you solved anything, but because task mode is occupied. Fourth, environmental shifts. When the inputs change, noise, novelty, conversation, the output changes. Not because the issue got solved, because the steering changed. Once you name the mechanism, the pattern stops looking mysterious. Your thinking follows the rules of the system, not the rules of logic or conscious control. When you blame yourself for overthinking, you're blaming yourself for the operation of an automatic system. It's like blaming yourself for your heart beating. When you try to control your thoughts through willpower, you're trying to consciously override an unconscious process. The switching happens at a level below conscious awareness. When you feel guilty about not being able to stop thinking, you're feeling guilty about not being able to do something that's actually impossible. The voice in your head isn't your voice. It's the output of a system generating coherent stories from unfinished fragments. When you lie in bed overthinking, you're not experiencing weakness or poor self-control. You're experiencing the default operation of a pattern-matching system that evolved to find problems even when none exist. What people call control is often just the environment doing the steering. All day, your attention gets captured by external tasks. You experience this as choosing what to think about, but the choosing is being done by whatever captures your attention. The feeling of agency arrives after the mechanism. So here's the reframe. You think night overthinking is you losing control, but it's the opposite. The control was never yours. All day, your attention is being steered by tasks, signals, inputs. At night, the steering disappears and the system reverts to its default setting. It hunts open loops, it links them into a coherent story, and the story feels true because coherence feels like truth. That's why just stop thinking never works, because the thing producing the thoughts isn't the part of you that hears the instruction. You don't steer the mind. You inherit whichever mode the situation activates. Thinking isn't a tool you control. It's a system that controls what you notice. Not comfort, truth.